You ready? You're listening to the Real Pineapple Podcast Network. Good afternoon, ladies, gentlemen, days, and gays. This is the Real Pineapple. This is your humble host, Hunter, here. I hope you're safe. I hope you're well. Happy Tuesday to you. I am reporting from fucking West Coast where it's 30 goddamn degrees. It's fucking freezing. I am over it already, but that's neither here nor there. That's why I look like I'm wearing my Life Aquatic outfit here, but I'm really excited today to have actress, writer, star of the latest film, A Perfectly Good Moment, which you can check out on Tubi, and you can go ahead and check out on VOD as well. I've got Amanda Jane Stern here. Amanda, how are you?
I'm good. I'm on the East Coast, and it's actually 50 degrees here in New York today.
Oh, lucky you.
I mean, we've had, we had a good solid 2 weeks of absolutely below freezing. So it's nice to have some warmth again.
Yeah. So it's weird. Where I'm at is there aren't really so there are seasons, but we get hit really hard from Thanksgiving on, and sometimes we'll get random snow in March. So I don't really know what the weather's gonna do. So we'll see. But I really appreciate you making the time. Thanks for being a guinea pig, because this is actually the first time I've done a live
oh wow. Well, I'm happy to be the test subject.
Yeah, so thanks for that. I appreciate it. So I want to fill the audience in a little bit here. So I, like many others, have made the jump from Twitter to Blue Sky, because I was sick of being called the N word and the F word for just existing. So I was like, yeah, let's jump to Blue Sky, and it's been quite awesome to actually be able to connect with other creatives such as yourself. And so I went into the movie cold. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't watch the trailer. I didn't really talk to you about it. So I actually got up and made my morning coffee, and I was like, oh, perfectly good moment. This might be like a fun rom-com, or maybe like a dramedy. And goddamn, it is not.
No, oh my god, you're not the only person who's done that though. So we played at the festival in Iowa last year, the Julian Dubuque International Film Festival. It's an amazing festival. It's run like little Sundance. They fly you out, they give you housing, they feed you the entire time. There were massages in the filmmakers lounge. Yeah. And every movie gets 2 screenings. And so we'd had our first screening, and we generated some buzz after our first screening.
I would imagine. Yeah.
And so our second screening was in a smaller screening room, but that's the one that ended up being packed. And when Lauren, the director, and I first get there, we get there early, and the first 10 or 20 people who arrive are women and femme presenting people. And the audience, it became more gender diverse as the audience was filling in, but that's just who got there first. So It's the two of us. We're 2 women, about 10 or 20 other women, and this elderly couple. And the husband looks around the room and says to his wife, "Oh, I guess it's a chick flick."
Oh no.
And so the air conditioner in the room was not working, so it was also really, really steamy in the room. Perfect. And after the movie ended, Lauren and I get up to do the Q&A, and Lauren thanks everyone for bearing with everything going on and how hot it was in the room and how everyone just stayed through everything. And the woman in the couple shouts out, "Wasn't just the room that was hot."
That's awesome.
I could just see her husband, who said, "Oh, I guess it's a chick flick," next to her like this.
That's fantastic. I love that for y'all. That's wow.
I know. I think about that lady often. I really do.
So shout out to her, whoever that woman was.
I know.
You're delightful.
Some random lady in Iowa.
So I don't. So one of the things I actually pride myself in doing is I don't do research when I do an interview because I actually like it to be like a conversation.
Mhm.
So let's just start with the basics. Like, what got you into like? Do you remember the first time that you saw a movie and you kind of went, "I want to do that"? Like, do you remember? Was there a film like that that unlocked that for you?
You know what? Probably The Wizard of Oz, actually.
Nice. Let's
Yeah,
go. Okay.
I wanted to be an actor from a very young age. I was actually a child actor. I did a bunch of indie movies, some TV spots, and nothing huge. My parents were very big on, you could take a few days off here or there, but you're going to go to school and all that. Um, but I would say it was The Wizard of Oz. I was absolutely obsessed with it. I'm a little redhead, and Dorothy was a ginger. And so I identified with her, even though I cannot sing to save my life. I even in pre-K had a Wizard of Oz themed birthday party where
Let's
my mom, she was working as a casting director in an off-Broadway theater, like a very indie theater. And the season, because my birthday's in December, there was no season. They're not, starting a new show around the holidays. So the theater was pretty empty. So she was able to book it and hire just a couple of actors to run a Wizard of Oz birthday party for me where me and all my friends came and we dressed up and we reenacted the movie. And of course I was Dorothy. And I remember I had this really good friend, this boy, Ethan, and he decided to be Glinda, but he wanted to change the name to masculinize her more. So he's like, well, I could be Glenn. No, how about I'm Glenda? And that is my best like preschool Glenn or Glenda joke that could ever be.
as far as acting, um, so I do have your IMDb up. I am cheating slightly. I did see that you did a your senior thesis here on I know I'm going that deep called a coerced documentary play, which
Yes.
as a huge NPR nerd, I was like,
Oh,
oh shit,
yes.
okay. Yeah, huge NPR guy here. So this is heavy. So it's about a teenage girl who like, do you write happy things? Like
No, I
like
don't think I do.
okay, so real quick for the audience here. So the play is about a teenage girl who is illegally interrogated by police and coerced into a murder confession.
Yep.
So how does that come about? How did
Um,
you get there?
so in college, in my freshman year of college, which was, a good hot minute ago now, I took a class called History as Theater, which is where you studied documentary playwriting. It was taught by a professor named Joyce Antler, who was a documentary playwright. Her plays had been directed by Moises Kaufman. And as a class, we studied an instance in history and wrote a play about it, a documentary play. And so a doc play there are a couple of different models. The one we were working off of is where basically all of the dialogue in the play is taken from historical records. So that could be news articles, interviews that you conduct, news clippings, anything like that. And
Okay.
we did one as a class about a thing that happened during the Vietnam War where I went to school. It was really, really big on their anti-war protesting. It was the headquarters for the National Student Strike Information Center. And we've had 5 students on the FBI's 10 most wanted list, 3 of whom were women. Only 10 women have ever been on this list. And we did a play about 2 of the women, and it was for a bank robbery that was supposed to fund what it was kind of misguided what their mindset was, especially since a couple of the people involved in this bank robbery really were active protesters and really cared about ending the war. But then there were also ex-cons who just wanted to fuck shit up. And so it was a huge thing. And the 2 women ended up on the FBI's 10 most wanted list. We did a whole play about it. It's really crazy now because I've seen so many crime shows that have taken that story and done fictionalized accounts of it. And I know immediately that's what it is because I interviewed one of the women and I know the story so intimately that when it pops up, I go, oh, that's Susan Sachs and Kathy Power. That's that. So I got really, really into it. And there was another student in that class named Julian Seltzer, who you might have also noticed produced Perfectly Good Moment and co-wrote the story with me.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
He's my actual partner. We've been together since college, and we both got really into this documentary playwriting thing. And the same semester we were in that class, he was in a legal studies class, and the professor had a NPR journalist named David Bowery come in just to talk about his work. This guy, his big thing was he followed Whitey Bulger for 30 years. He was a mob guy.
Okay.
But he also covered this case of a teenage girl named Na Trong, who was illegally interrogated by Worcester police for 2 hours and 37 minutes and coerced into a false murder confession.
Jesus.
I know. The interrogation was videotaped, though, and he won like a Peabody for this. A Peabody? I'm sorry. I went to college in Massachusetts, and I laugh at how they pronounce the town of Peabody. They say Peabody.
My partner's from the East Coast, so she does that too. So.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And now I can't undo it. He won a Peabody for his reporting on this, and we became really interested in the case, which was also still unfolding as he was talking about it, because she was out of jail, but she had a civil action suit against the police department, obviously. And so we basically paid attention to when David Bowery would be speaking in public at things, and went to the Boston Book Festival to go meet him to say, hey, we met you back when you were at Brandeis for a day. We're really interested in the story. We want to make a play about it. And we just kind of kept hounding him until he actually thought we were serious about doing this and trusted us enough to let us get all of the documents. And I mean, we went to WBUR, which is Boston NPR, one day, and just scanned and logged every single piece of paperwork he had about this case. Damn. It was amazing. And also, we're NPR people too, so we have photos of us in the parking lot, just like, oh my god, look, it's the general manager's car next to ours. And then
see, that'd be me. So yeah, no,
and then the play happened, and he goes, well, this was a big case for me, and they're interested in it. So do you want to come be on Radio Boston and do an interview on which was their flagship show? And this wasn't like middle of nothing going on. This was when the Boston bomber, like the marathon bomber news was going on.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of news. It wasn't like they had things they needed to fill. But so they had us on Radio Boston and they covered us in the Artery, which is their art section, but still Radio Boston is their flagship show. And there we are, these college seniors talking about our senior thesis.
God damn. That's so okay. So you mentioned that the fact that you wrote this, co-wrote this with your your partner. Given this subject matter, so let me backtrack a little bit here. So without giving too much away, Perfectly Good Moment is about the character you play, Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
She's been in this relationship with this guy, David, off and on. I don't want to give away like the time frame or anything like that, but just they have a tumultuous relationship, to put it mildly. And so as I'm watching this, because I'm that asshole, like when I listen to other people's podcasts and I feel like they're just not trying, I do get like agitated and I'm just like grumble. Tackling this subject matter, because I think about something like Woman of the Hour. That's immediately what I thought of as I was watching this, or like a Simple Favor. How do you attack a subject matter like this with the sensitivity that you need to? Because there is always kind of that line, I think, of this turning into some I'll drop his name, I don't care, some Ryan Murphy shit, where I think it gets so I think it becomes sensationalized to a point that it's no longer like real and you can't connect with your characters. Was that like a conscious, like, okay, how were you thinking about tackling this when you decided to take this on?
So what's interesting is when I first started writing it, that wasn't actually even my intention. When I first started writing it, I wanted to write a 2-character, 1-location thriller because it's a genre I like. And it was COVID, and that is the easiest thing to film because it's such a closed set, so you can really take safety precautions. And again, it's a genre that I love. And I started writing it. I had these characters in mind, and I had the first couple of scenes. And as I was going on, I realized what I was writing. And I realized what I was talking about. And I'll be honest, there were things I was pulling from. This wasn't just I want to tackle toxic age gaps because it's interesting. It was something I was tackling because I grew up, and the moment I hit puberty, adult men started hitting on me. And the way that I internalized that through my teen years is very different than how I look at it now as a grown-up woman. When you're a teen, you think about it and you think, oh, well, I'm so mature for my age. That's what I'll say. You're an old soul. You're precocious. And then you become a grown-up. And you realize, no, wait, no. That is exactly how they isolate you. That's what they're doing. You're not an old soul. You're a kid.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what I was writing from. And I know that the kind of narcissist that David is, I know that person very well. So every line of his, I knew what I was pulling from, and I'm not saying everything was intimate, like an intimate partner relationship for me. It wasn't, that's not just what I was pulling from. There were other people that I know who I know through other ways who inspired that character.
Yeah.
But it was very much a thing of, I know this man very intimately in some way, shape, or form. And it wasn't so much a conscious, I'm trying to do this one thing and these are the bullet points I want to hit. It was, who is he and what would he do and say? And then how do I come up with a revenge plot that is in service of this story and not have a story that's in service of a plot, of a plot twist, basically.
I found it really interesting, like as the film goes on. I really like the way that the dialogue does ramp up, and that's something about your writing that I was actually really impressed with because there are these points where Ruby's very she's very quiet, she's very unsure of herself, but you start to see through flashbacks and other things how these experiences have shaped her. What sort of fine balance is it from pulling, because I admit I can't imagine how hard of a balance that is to strike, especially given the subject matter. Where is there a certain line that you kind of have to almost like draw when you sit down to write, like, and I'm not even just saying about this subject matter, I'm just saying in general, like, are there certain boundaries that you go like, maybe I don't want to pull from this time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So
there are absolutely, and that is why this is fiction and does go places that are not gonna happen in real life. At the end of the day, I am not ever going to put my real life on screen. That is my boundary of, I can use real experiences, and I'm always gonna spin that in a genre direction. And I mean, look, that's what I say now. Maybe one day I'll just, but I also don't think that my personal stories are that interesting or long enough to make a movie. And that's also just, it's not what I need to do. That's not cathartic to me. Cathartic to me is taking something and spinning it into fiction and making up characters using real things. So I would say that's what my line is.
Was this cathartic? Like when she when she saw this back, because I would imagine, like, especially where things, no spoilers, end up, I was like, okay, I can feel a lot of people, like, especially this playing at a festival, I can imagine the amount of people who are like, oh my god, I relate to A, B, and C, like, or this line of dialogue, because there are some lines of dialogue. So I don't do so. A quick peek behind the curtain. I actually DM'd Amanda and I asked you, and I was like, look, I'll watch this in real time and I'll react to it. And you had the best reaction. You were like, oh no, well, what if it sucks? And it was like, well, then this interview will be a little awkward.
It's true. I'll be like, so you made that thing.
and thankfully it's a great flick. But I will say there are multiple lines of dialogue that I've heard variations of that I just went, oh no. And then, like, in situations even where, like, the one thing I will say is there's this point where, and I want to shout out your co-star.
Stephen Carlisle. I love him.
He's okay. So I would imagine he's a great dude and like
Yes.
the nicest guy, because
Yes.
I feel like most of the time people who are great at playing pieces of shit are like the nicest people, or like the
He's
nicest
a
people.
sweetheart. He's so game. I mean, you saw the movie. I trust him implicitly. He could
Yeah.
throw me around a room and I would know that I was still in control. That's how much I trust him.
So how do you build that? So like, have you guys like? I'm assuming you guys have worked together on other stuff. I'd assume, or no?
No,
Really?
I've met him once before.
Oh shit. Okay. Damn.
Okay, so in January of 2020, I went to see The Lion King on Broadway
Nice.
with my mom. She was gifted tickets by his manager back in the UK. And it was for the holiday, and his manager said, yeah, here, go this day, and then you could go backstage afterwards and you can meet him, and I'm sure he'll give you a tour and whatever. As I said, I have a December birthday, so that was right near my birthday. And my mom said, oh, well, why don't we just, instead of doing a big birthday celebration on your birthday this year, let's do it in January. Go see The Lion King, go hang out backstage with Scar. And I came from work. I was really frazzled. I hadn't even looked up who we were meeting. I was just like, hey, he's the guy who plays Scars. Okay, cool. The show's amazing. Obviously, we were in fantastic seats. You see the animals walk down the aisle. And so after the show, we go backstage. I have no idea who we're meeting. And we go into the backstage area and we're waiting for him to come down to take us upstairs. And all of a sudden, this very large, very British. Now I'm going to say he's 6'3", I'm 5'2". So, everyone's large to me, but he's tall. He's quite tall. This very, very tall British man is standing over me and he looks down and he just goes, well, hello.
That's such a British greeting too. That makes me that goddamn that. I love that.
I know. And so we walk. We kind of do the backstage tour, and then we go back to the dressing room area and open a bottle of champagne. And one of his other co-stars this guy Jim, and we're all drinking champagne and talking. And Jim is talking about his wife's podcast and the 70s wood paneling in their basement at home in New Jersey. And there's one moment where Steven just looks over at me and he just raises one eyebrow. And that was it. And then I just thought, I think I want to work with this guy. So we swapped contact info because I had told him a camera setup to buy for self-tapes. He texted me the next day, thank you, would you mind sending me the link to the backdrop or whatever it was. And then that was it. We didn't really, the only other time I texted him was I was at a comedy show and there was a comedian on stage doing a bit about how he had recently seen The Lion King and that every time Scar was on stage, he just wanted to go, yes, queen. And so I texted him that. And then we followed each other on Instagram and would occasionally like a post or whatnot. Yeah. And then fast forward a year and I'm sitting at home thinking about this script idea I have. And I'm wondering, is there anyone that I see in the male lead role? And I don't know why, but for whatever reason, I just think, what about that guy? So I write this and I texted him and I said, hey, buddy, been a while. Want to make a movie? Call me.
Nice. Okay.
He reads the script and he goes, yeah, I'm in. And then I go, oh, shit. He said, yes. So now we have to find a director and money and everything. And we do. So I messaged him back and I said, hey, we have a director and I would love you to meet her. And that's when he went back and reread the script and actually read all of the stage directions, which he hadn't really read the first time.
Oh, boy. You would think being in The Lion King, that would be one of the first things he would read would be the stage direction. Like, that's... Sorry.
He had to ask for permission. He asked Disney permission. And the response that they gave him was, hey, Jeremy Irons did Lolita after doing The Lion King. I think you're good.
True. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah. So he reads the stage directions and he texts me back and he goes, by the way, I've only ever had one stage kiss before.
This is a bit of a jump from
just a little bit.
Just pad, yeah.
And I said, that's okay. We're bringing on an intimacy coordinator.
So, okay, I'm happy you brought that up because I was going to bring that.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know that's definitely a conversation that's going on in Hollywood, and rightfully so, given all the shit that's happened in Hollywood. But
Yeah.
I've never seen an intimacy coordinator, at least that I can remember, and I watched a ton of shit like in the credits, especially in like the beginning credits.
Yep.
Talk to me about why that was so important to establish that, because I think that's a very important thing given the subject matter.
Mhm.
So yeah,
I
can you talk
agree.
to me about that?
No, that's exactly why. We're telling you to come watch an erotic thriller. And I love the genre, but I also know about horrible things that happened on the sets of the classic erotic thrillers. A big influence on this movie was Last Tango in Paris, which has one of the most notorious. Are you kidding me? Why you did that? That's not okay in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
And I also know this is a movie where you're going to be really uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, you are.
Yeah. We're towing this line where it is both really, really sexy. It's quite kinky. It's also incredibly uncomfortable. You have all of these sex scenes which are tied to dialogue. So it's not just like you can tune out the intimacy scenes. They are inherent to the plot and to what is going on. And the, dichotomy of things that David is saying versus the sexual content that's going on, and how you kind of layer those two together really changes the meaning. And so we had a big conversation about, do we put our intimacy coordinator's name in the opening credit or just keep them in the end credits, which is normal? And we just thought it's so important that even for the audience that going in, the way that you see a rating that gives you those trigger warnings. Hey, yes, stuff is going to happen. There was an intimacy coordinator. This was not that kind of set. This set took pain. So as uncomfortable as you are, as much as you're thinking about the sexual content, there was that person on set. We did the work to make sure that it was done well.
Yeah, and I think given the subject matter, I shout out, who's the intimacy director on that?
Acacia DeQueer. They are amazing. I love
shout
them.
out to them, because I think they did an incredible job here. Talk to me about meeting Lauren, because you said that obviously, because I think one thing that people don't realize is how hard it is to actually get a film like going through the indie film like hoops, like it's a lot, and I don't think people realize like how much like it actually is a process. So you get your script, you get your funding, you get your co-star. Like, so how does Lauren get into the picture?
No, you're right, because a lot of times when someone's making an indie film, they're either writing it for someone they already know to direct or for themselves to direct. I was not. I did not have a director in mind when I wrote this, and I knew I was not directing it. So Julian and I started putting out feelers to people that, we've both been in the industry for years. So we reached out to people that we knew and respected and said, hey, we're looking for a female identifying director. Do you know someone who this might be the right thing for them? Obviously, this is low budget, so we're probably looking for someone who maybe is moving on to make their second feature, or it's their first feature after a career in docs or shorts or something like that, and they want to make that jump. And the woman who was our film's colorist, Emily Bailey, she actually grew up with Julian. They're from the same town, and they reconnected after graduating, after realizing, oh, we both work in the same industry. Let's stay in touch. Let's get drinks. So he emailed it to her and he said, hey, I know you're a great colorist, wink, wink. But also, do you know any director that this might be right for? And Lauren Greenhall is a director that Emily works with all the time, because Emily is Lauren's go-to colorist. And so she sent it to Lauren, and she emails us and she says, I don't know if you're still looking for a director, but this woman, Lauren Greenhall, who I work with a lot, she comes from a comedy and documentary background. She has not done a thriller, but she's very interested in this if you want to talk to her. And we were actively interviewing a bunch of people. But we get on the phone and I remember we sent Lauren's website to my mom, and my mom just goes, yes, I have good vibes about her. Nice. Just thinking, okay.
So then you have to get her then. Like that's it.
Right? I was just like, okay, this is who you have the best vibes about. Sure, I don't know why, but okay. But we get on the phone with Lauren, and she says, I don't know you. I don't know your story. But when I was in my early 20s, I dated the guy who was 16 years older than me. And there are lines in the script that my ex said to me verbatim. And and then we had an amazing conversation about how it has to toe the line between being really uncomfortable and also being really horny, because it is both sexy and bad, and that those two things can exist in conjunction with each other. They're not mutually exclusive. And I remember we got off the phone with her and we had another interview with another director an hour after, and we both just look at each other and we just say, like, this next woman we talk to she has to like be God, because I don't foresee anyone topping that conversation that we just had. And clearly the answer was she was not God.
Yeah.
And we immediately reached back out to Lauren and said, we would love for you to come meet us in person and meet Steven and see if this is going to work out. And they've both told me after the fact that on their way to that meeting, they were just sitting, on their way there thinking, am I going to do this? Like, what? Steven thinking, can I do this? This is kind of terrifying. There's so much sexual content. Will I be comfortable with this? And Lauren thinking, can I do a thriller? Like, this is so out of my wheelhouse. And she told me as she was on her way to the meeting, she passed by a stoop and they'd left out a copy of Lolita on the stoop. And she picked it up and she goes, well, I think that's my sign.
That's wild. So,
yep.
Okay. You being the right. So, was there ever a conversation, like, did you write? Because I always do find it interesting when people decide to go ahead and act in their film, but then also they're the writer of it. Mm-hmm. Was that a conscious decision, like, as you're writing this, where you're like, this is my, you weren't writing this for anyone else, right?
I was writing it for myself. And that's why so many of the things that he says about her physically are specifically about how I look. Mm-hmm. Those are all, yeah.
Okay. Was there anything? Okay. What's the biggest change that occurred from the first draft to your script to what you guys ended up shooting?
Mm-hmm. The opening scene where they meet, that was actually added after we shot everything else. We realized having that pickup day to see that would be really good. And then that way we could flash back to it. So that was not in the original draft. And then the biggest changes were about the twist of who's controlling that. In the original draft, it's her on an iPad, and we had a mock-up for what it would look like because my brother's a coder, so he made a version, like a beta version of what it could look like. And then as Lauren and I were discussing, we just realized that's not going to be so visually interesting. Let's just have Ruby present and active, and that we could have this Angela character who gets mentioned but never met be the one who's actually controlling from afar. And that gives Ruby another, the Angela was always there and the phone calls were always there, but we just gave her more active. And then the climactic violence, that was different in the original draft. And we changed it to what it was because Lauren and I were at a meeting and we were going through the script, and it was kind of just a moment of us going, well, what is everything that this is? What line is the script towing? What is David building up to? What is actually earned in the script? And what are we as women most afraid of? Oh, it's this. Are we comfortable doing this? Let's talk to our intimacy coordinator. Can we do this in an okay way? We tested that against a bunch of other people to make sure it wasn't too triggering and to make sure that it was actually kind of cathartic. And we got a lot of responses of like, well, because it is so out of body, it felt cathartic for me as a survivor of this kind of responses. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. We did a lot of work to do that.
No, and I appreciate you did because I won't lie, like it takes a lot to make me uncomfortable, and I was actively squirming at moments. So I was like, oh, I don't like this. Like the dialogue of that he's saying. There's this point where he goes like I can give it away, but he goes like, why do you always ruin like these perfect moments? And it's just like, I do so much for you, and I'm just sitting here just like you prick. So I give you credit on that front. couple more questions for you. What was there anything that you had to cut script wise that just didn't hit the rhythm that you're wanting, or like the flow that you were like, damn, I wish I could find a spot for this, but it just doesn't work with the story we're trying to tell?
Absolutely. There are little things, no scenes or anything, but there were some little details that I had added in the script that fleshed out a little more how Ruby had put her life back together in the 6 months that she's been away from him. Like, there was a phone call with her mother kind of thing, and it just broke the tension. And I'm actually now kind of glad that we did cut it, because it leaves her backstory a little more ambiguous in a way that maybe part of what made her an easy mark for him is that she already had a bad relationship with her parents and he moved in, or he was the one who isolated her. And by not showing what's happened in those 6 months, we can leave that ambiguity, and you can read it either way.
Fair. So in terms of the actual intimate scenes, I'm always in that camp of, oh God, I can't imagine how uncomfortable it would be to, because so first off, like, you have your intimacy director, coordinator, pardon me. You have Lauren. Like, how many people are like on set when you're like doing those scenes? Are you trying to keep it small set, or is it like everyone there? Like, how do you kind of navigate those?
So because we're all set in an apartment, we had full access to that space. So there were no guests. No one was ever, you couldn't have guests on set. And then I think crew wise, we only ever had 13 to 15 people max on set any day. And then any day that required special costuming, we'd have an extra art and costume PA. But it was a generally very small set. And it was also a thing of, Acacia sending out emails of saying what intimacy was being filmed on what days, and what Steven and I were comfortable with, who could be in the room, who could be at Video Village, who we would rather stay in the other rooms. And because it was such a small crew, because it was also a crew of people who either I already knew and was really close with, or Lauren had worked with and trusted implicitly, it was a very, very safe feeling set. So we didn't really have a thing of, oh, well, if you don't need to be in the room when the scene's being filmed, go to a different room. We were fine with it, and also we'd choreograph. These scenes are so choreographed. We rehearsed them so much. It's like doing a dance. It's a stunt that, on this line, he does this motion, breathe 3 times, and then move on to the next thing. So by the time we were doing it, it was actually pretty easy for us.
You had it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, Lauren would yell cut, and we would totally break character, and we'd be goofing off, and we'd be downing coffee, like cans of black cold brew coffee and cans of seltzer, kind of alternating. And at this point, like, there's so many kissing scenes, we were just sharing the sand because
this point, yeah. I'm like,
well, if you've got anything, I'm getting it at this point. And we would hide Listerine packs all over set. So, like, underneath the couch cushions, under the bed, in the kitchen, in the drawers, right off view of camera, there was a Listerine pack.
You know what? I appreciate that because you're going to be doing all these these scenes. Like, yeah, you don't want someone breath smelling like garlic or
exactly.
Yeah.
We were pretty conscious about what we were eating to not like taste gross.
Okay, that's nice of you too.
Yeah, it was a really nice set. We'd get home every day and Stephen and I would text each other like, oh, it's so great working with you. You're wonderful. You were so good today. I had such a good time. See you tomorrow. And apparently Julian would text everyone on the crew every night. Thank you for being here. You're wonderful. I'm so glad you're working on this project.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
In terms of the a couple more questions. In terms of the score, because you get this one song, and I don't want to spoil the song, but there's a song that you get that's really like, I was like, when I heard it, I was like, oh my gosh, is it? And I was like, oh my god, it is this. And
we got so lucky licensing that.
So again, not to spoil the song, yeah. Can you kind of talk to me about how that comes about? Because that's a big get. Like,
it is. It
Yeah.
is. And it's a thing that I've had other friends who made indie films try to get songs of the same caliber and use our story as like, well, they did it, and then have other music groups say that doesn't happen. It does happen. You just have to get really lucky. So I wrote that song into the script because I'm an idiot. And had to really, so we filmed with it, you know?
Yeah.
And we had when you're getting a song to license, there are two sides. There's the composition and then there's the actual recording, and those are usually owned by different companies. In our case, one side was owned by BMG and the other side was owned by Sony. And we decided, okay, we're not going to go to these companies. We are going to reach out to the artist's manager directly. We're going to have Steven do the reach out, so it seems really charming. This is why we gave Steven producer credit. And then Steven will bounce it to me, and we're just going to pitch why this song is so important. And I had read an interview with the songwriter about how he'd written the song for another movie and ended up getting cut from that movie. It's not actually his favorite song that he wrote, and he kind of views it as a little schmaltzy, and he would love to see someone do it a different way. So that was part of my pitch was, well, he's in heaven and she is trying to leave. And this one verse, and obviously part of our pitch was, yeah, we're going to play basically the whole song. They're going to dance to it, and he's going to sing an entire verse. Can we get this for, I don't know, maybe a few $1,000? We got it for $500.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know. I know.
People, when you hear the song, you are going to be like your ears will perk up, like my mind did, where I was like, wait, what, really? And yeah, because that was I was. So was there, like, let's say you don't get that license, were there any other songs like in your head that you had like as like the standby?
Gonna have something written for us.
Okay.
But what we did that was good was we got the composition rights before we filmed.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
But even still, when you're licensing from something that's that big, they're not going to offer you full all media worldwide in perpetuity yet. When you're in indie, they'll offer you festival rights, and then you have to go back, and that's when you can get screwed up.
Oh, that sucks. Okay.
And so obviously, here's the thing. Had we been able to get the comp and not the actual recording, we could have licensed from an indie their cover of it, someone else who had the mechanical rights. That would be fine. We got lucky, and we got it from Sony on a unprecedented basis, is what the email said.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. Well. But yeah, no, that was the big fear of, oh no, well now we have to go back and get, worldwide in perpetuity rights. We don't have more money to give them, or they're just going to let us slide by. And we got so lucky. We really did. And that's just because this is an artist who also really likes supporting emerging talent and indie creators. And we had really done our research about that. And this is also an artist who is a big enough artist that they have that kind of sway with those companies, that if it's someone who is still a little more indie themselves, they're not going to have that much power, but he does. So that's what helped us.
Yeah. Keep an eye out for that, people, when you get there. Last question for you. Like I said, I think this movie is incredibly well done. It's very heavy, but
yes.
But I think it will warrant a lot of very interesting and great discussion when the credits go ahead and roll. Is there a singular message that you want your audience to take away once the credits start rolling?
I think it's more the kind of thing that I just know there are so many people who relate to this, and if someone who is going through that relationship actively sees it and relates, and that's the impetus to say, wait, that's what I'm in right now, and I need to get out of it, that is amazing. But it is also for people who have been through it to be cathartic, to be a kind of revenge movie that, sure, is it super grounded? No, but it is more grounded than something where it becomes super physically violent in a way that doesn't make any sense. It is using tropes that we've seen and spinning it in a way we haven't seen it before. And it's really for those people to give them that kind of catharsis, see it on screen and say, I've been through that. And also not to wallow in the trauma too much. Sometimes movies that deal with these relationships really wallow in the trauma of it. And that's why I didn't show you the whole relationship. You're being jumped in at the end of it. And that's intentional. You know, you already know something's off. And Ruby's already on her path to revenge, because the moment you meet David, you know who he is. And I don't need to show you every step along the way. I don't need to force you through all of the trauma of this relationship for the satisfaction of the revenge. And if you, you know, and if you watch it and you think he's not that bad, then I'm really glad you don't know that man. I'm so happy for you. But
yeah, if you don't think he's bad, I like it,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know what to tell you if you don't see.
Yeah.
There's one scene in particular that I just went like, okay, I'm trying to think of how I could dance around this. There's a point where Dave starts laying out these ultimatums as far as like, and that was the scene where I was like I was like, okay, like enough of this. Yeah. So, but
yeah, Act 1 is really, it's confusing, it's uncomfortable. It's like, well, maybe this is just a sex game, you know? And then Act 2 is really, this is the relationship.
No, Act 2 removes any doubt of what this is. So yeah, y'all just be prepared for Act 2. Amanda, this was delightful. Thank you.
It was. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I told you it wouldn't be bad. It'd be fine. But
hey, I was getting your live reactions as you were doing it, and that was fantastic. That was so much fun. That was like when we were in the most reactive audiences and actually getting to hear them react to the movie, which was our Iowa audience and also kind of a Florida audience, which was, we played at a few Florida festivals, and our second one, they positioned us as the late night erotic thriller. And our audience, because it's Florida, half of the audience was 70 to 80-year-olds.
Perfect.
And then the other half were African-American people who lived in that town in their 30s and 40s.
Okay.
So you can imagine like 70 to 80-year-old white people. And then a genre audience. And they're also like sitting in different sections because all the old people are sitting up front so they can really see. So it looks so
how'd that go?
It actually went really well. I think what happens is, because that's obviously an audience, they're younger, that is used to being more vocal to the screen, but then they see that all the people in front of them are 80-year-olds. So they're like, well, I guess we'll be a little quieter.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, we'll be nice. Yeah, we'll be nice to them. But then after the movie is when they're like, okay, now we're going to unleash all of the reactions that we wanted to give you, but couldn't because we were being nice to the 80-year-olds.
That's awesome.
But that's like, it did really, really well there. And that's when we realized that was an audience that actually would probably be good for this movie too. Because obviously I made it thinking like, women in their like 18 to 35, that's who's having this conversation. That's who we're targeting. And then what we found out going to festivals is that there's also a huge African-American audience of genre fans who were into it. And then older women, like the 60s, 70s, 80-year-old women who hadn't been having these conversations about these relationships, but were in them and they were younger, seeing it on screen in a way that actually resonated with them and then wanting to talk about it. And so that was interesting, is that obviously the younger audience, they want to talk, to the open forum. They want everyone, it's a dialogue together. But the older people want to come up to you afterwards. They don't want to do a Q&A. They want to come talk to you personally.
Yeah. So what is, okay, all right, I lied. One more question. What is the biggest, like, what's one of your favorite, like, interactions you've had post-screening after someone's watched the film?
I have two. They were both in Florida. So one was at that festival where the audience was half Black people in their 30s and 40s and half 70 to 80-year-old white people. Okay. And at the Q&A, there's one row, and it's all these are the younger people, so they're like 30s, probably around my age. And one guy raises his hand, and he's there with his girlfriend. There's another couple with them. It's like 8 of them. And he just goes, "Girl, why? and and so I go, well, I grew up a woman in New York City, and the moment I hit puberty, adult men started hitting on me, and I've had a lot of these stories, and I just see his girlfriend next to him just starts snapping, and the entire row just starts nodding like, shit, yup, that's our story too.
Mm.
And then our first festival was a different Florida festival. Somehow we did really well in Florida.
Go figure.
I know, which is a weird place to go, especially when you're going with a trans non-binary intimacy coordinator, and you're like,
I can imagine. Like, I've
we
never
made
been
phone
to Florida,
calls.
and I yeah.
We rented a house, so we had our own living situation. That the crew stayed with us, but we also, like, Julian made a bunch of phone calls. We like, can we ensure that they're going to be safe? Because we want them with us, huge part of our team, but we want them to feel safe. And this was, last year before it had gotten even worse. But so the night after our premiere, I was at one of the parties for the festival, and there were these two women there. One was 60, one was in her 70s. And they'd been at the movie the night before. And again, this is a thing where people in that age bracket don't want to talk afterwards. They want to talk to you personally. And the older of the two, she said, when I was, 20, I married a guy who was 20 years older than me, and that was the relationship. And I've been out of that for a really long time, but I haven't seen anything that depicted the actual, like, the way that I experienced it and how it felt. And the other woman said that when she was younger, she had been in a similar relationship and had been sexually assaulted, and she has never spoken about it.
Wow.
And now she wanted to talk about it and her experiences, and that was the most, like, holy shit.
Damn.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I will say, as someone who watched this, I think, I really do think this is going to lead to some great conversation, and I commend you for writing such a great script, because I definitely because I've seen movies attempt this and fall short.
It's a hard line, and I think part of it is as I said, there's a plot twist, but the plot twist is in service of the story and the relationship, not the other way around, and also how many people's voices we listen to going into it. That, sure, if I wrote something and this didn't resonate with enough people, because obviously there are going to be people who look at it and they go, well, that's not my brand of feminism, or that doesn't really resonate for me, and it's fine. There will always be that person.
Yeah.
But does it resonate with enough people? And we, it did for a lot of the people on our set who had come from similar relationships. We had one crew member who had literally just gotten out of a relationship with a guy 13 years older than her, named David. And it was the same relationship. And so she read the script, and we didn't know this sending her the script. She's like, I was just in this. This is what I just left this guy.
Yeah.
And he started texting her too while we were on set once. And at that point she was like, no, I'm not responding. Fuck you. And I remember doing Ruby's final monologue, and the first take of it after Lauren yelled cut, I guess all of the women and non-binary department heads and crew members were at Video Village for that scene. And so I just hear them all start clapping.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah.
Damn.
I've had a few women respond to me quoting that last monologue, just be like, yes, iconic. I want to say that.
Yeah, I will say, without spoiling, the art, there is some dialogue in the last 25 that I was like, damn, bro, just bravo to this. So, but Amanda, again, thank you so much for stopping by and taking this time. This was delightful. Like, I really do appreciate it. If you could please tell people where they can watch the film and where they can find you on socials before I let you go.
Yeah, I am on Blue Sky and Instagram at Amanda Jane Stern, and I'm on Letterboxd at Witchy Wanderer. You can watch Perfectly Good Moment on Tubi for free. It's got ads, but the ad breaks are, so the movie is actually split into a 3-act structure with breaks, and
so pretentious.
I know, but it actually needed to.
I won't lie, I laughed at that. Look, I saw like Act 1, I was like, oh, I love this.
So when I wrote it, I didn't intend for us to do that. I was really just doing it as a guideline for the director and cinematographer to know that we're now, like, we really are splitting it. And we had talks about, do we just do act cards? Do we do some sort of like inter scenes? And then Lauren was like, you know what? Let's not take away from it. Let's just do the act break cards and have a cool graphic, a graphic artist do a cool font that shows what's going on. But yeah, but they actually put the ads in those act breaks, so it's cool. And then you can rent or buy it on Amazon.
Perfect. And yeah, my review for this will be up for those of you who are not watching this live. First off, shame on you. But the review for Perfectly Good Moment will be up at the same time that this interview is up. So
well, I'm not too afraid to listen to it now. So.
Yeah. Well, like, well, I could always re-record it, but but Amanda, again, thank you so much for stopping by. I really hope that everyone gets to see this. And one more question. What do you have anything on the horizon coming up next? Like, as far as kind of what you're shooting for?
I have a horror script that I would love to do called Beast with Two Backs. That is very different than this. It is a gory creature feature about a woman who inherits a demon and it goes on a sex-filled murder rampage with said demon. Yeah.
Shit. Okay.
Yep.
Now. Okay. So I will ask: is it straight horror or is it like horror comedy? Like what's
erotic creature feature?
Okay.
Very, very black comedy. Like
so
it's funny.
Like in the Species vein, kind of. Or?
I describe it as like Hellraiser meets Shape of Water.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right, people. See, like, if people give Amanda funding. See, like, we want to see this next.
And it's definitely not straight. It's very queer.
Okay. Well then,
yes.
See, give Amanda money, people. All right. See, she has a script. But again, Amanda, thank you so much for stopping by. This was an absolute delight, and yeah, thanks again for stopping by, and have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much. I had a blast. I'm so amazed that you went into Perfectly Good Moment totally cold.
Yeah, I try to not watch trailers for stuff, and yeah, but I'm happy I went in cold because I got more than I bargained for, and I know the audience will too. So yeah,
not a chick flick.
Yeah, so people don't watch, like, seriously, don't watch the trailer for this. Just watch it. Just watch it. It's great.
Going cold. Watch it with the whole family. Have a really awkward holiday dinner.
Well, I don't know how how young you want to.
Not with the kids, unless they're teenagers. If you have teenage girls, yes, actually, I
think actually teenage girls seeing this would be
a really good dialogue. Maybe they are going through that adult man right now, and if that makes them realize, wait, I'm just a kid and he's a creep, that'd be great.
Yeah. So yeah, check this out, people. But again, Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And take care.
Bye.